The last video discussed two models of disability, the medical model and the social model. This video will continue to discuss how society plays a role in disability, specifically through the media. Now, the term media is a broad word. We will first discuss media as in movies, TV shows, and print media, those that tell stories. Then we will look at media in terms of news outlets. Media, such as movies and television shows, often construct disability through the omission or stereotyping of disabled people and their daily or lived experiences. For example, some TV shows will have a disabled character with traits of a disability, and viewers will identify the character as disabled, but the show or movie itself will never confirm the disability. Continuing, media will often focus on their differences, negatives, or a lack of blank. The characters is often portrayed as one-dimensional, their only character trait being their disability. When it comes to villains in media, they are sometimes portrayed with disabilities. Again, they are not explicitly labeled as disabled, but they may have traits of disabled people, such as visible scars or how they move. Over time, we need to understand the psychological effect this may have on the general public. What happens when people are constantly exposed to an underlying message, bad people have a disability, and therefore, disabled people are bad? Although this idea seems far-fetched, disabled people are rarely cared for in the United States and other countries. People are quick to push aside disabled people for their own benefit. Where does this behavior come from, and has the media done anything to promote it? Now to switch to news media. Often when news media discusses disability, they focus on their differences, negatives, how they lack something, or it is a feel-good media piece about how a person overcomes their disability. For example, girl hears for the first time. Print media often uses specific verbiage like this when writing about disability. The focus becomes how the person has overcome their disability and promotes this idea that disabled people are not trying enough to be able-bodied. It blames the disability and casts being different in a negative light. Let's look at an example of how media negatively portrays deafness. Go ahead and take a moment to read this passage and see if you can figure out how it negatively portrays deafness. Go ahead, pause if you need to. This article is blaming Porter's deafness as the reason she dropped out of activities in her community, church, and children's school. But is her deafness the real reason she dropped out? Or did she have to drop out because of a lack of access? Sure, the church and school could be providing interpreters for her, but that doesn't mean she can make meaningful connections with the people at the church and school. Interpreters are there to provide access to a service. They are not used to forge relationships with other people. So it is not necessarily her deafness that made her leave these groups and become more isolated. Here's another example. Again, take a moment to identify the language that is making deafness negative. One is the phrase hearing loss. Deaf and hard of hearing people use the words deaf and hard of hearing. Therefore, hearing people should be using the word deaf. Secondly, this passage implies her son hurt himself because she could not hear him. However, if a hearing person was in this situation, their hearing does not imply they would have been able to intervene. Hearing people listen to loud music, sound does not easily travel through walls. If the window was closed and the hearing person had on the TV, it is likely they would also not have heard the child getting hurt. This passage is implying deaf people will never notice a child in crisis and hearing people always will. Let's look at one more example. Again, pause the video if you need to. This is a common arguing point hearing people will make to explain why deafness is bad. This insinuates a deaf person is incapable of this job, which they are not. If the company wanted to, they could hire an interpreter for this person. They could use virtual interpreting services. The person could communicate through email, or even have them work with deaf clients, since deaf people are people too and can also get sick. Here are 2 more examples of connecting deafness with being bad. The media loves to use certain words to hit at hearing people's heartstrings, or create media that will get them clicks, views, or likes. It is important to identify when the media is trying to negatively portray disability. It is even more important to call it out when you can. When media lacks realistic representations of experiences of disability, it contributes to the marginalization or otherness of people with disabilities. It also increases able-bodied people's fear of disability by suppressing knowledge of how people live with disabilities.